Alright, this is the second time I'm going to try to tell this story. This is going to be a long story. This is the story of what happened when I became homeless. So, before I became homeless, I was 29 years old, and I had been dating Chelsea. This is my last girlfriend that I dated, and I had lost my virginity to her finally, so I thought that the relationship was more significant than it really was. And what happened was, I met her because she was sitting on the steps because she happened to move in into the same apartment complex that I was living at. Sam used to live right above me, and then Chelsea moved into the apartment that was just to the right of Sam. So she was upstairs, but she was on the other side of the building. So me and Brent are downstairs on the bottom left. Sam is right above us, and then Chelsea's at the upstairs apartment that's on the right of me, if you're staring at the front of the building. And one day she was sitting on the steps, and I said, "Hey, you're beautiful. What's your name?" And she smiled, and she's like, "Chelsea," and so we started talking and stuff, and then she comes by later that day and asks me if she can borrow pots and pans, and I was like, "No, I don't have any that are clean." And I guess I should have thought about like why she was coming over was probably, something more than just pots and pans, but I wasn't really thinking about it at the time, so that's what I had said. And then I saw her again. I don't remember what happened. I saw her again. I think she was outside smoking a cigarette, and I went outside to smoke a cigarette, and I think we started talking, and that's when we first started to, flirt and stuff like that. And at the time, she was sober, I think, or if she did drink, it was like on the low. It wasn't overt. So when I first met her, she was still basically sober, still basically had something going. She had her own job, and she had her own place, and, all that stuff. So she told me pretty much up front that she had already been in a relationship. She was married to some dude, Gary, but she didn't like that he was always like pissed off and yelling and screaming and stuff, and she didn't want to deal with it, and the relationship fizzled out or something like that. So she was separated from him, but she was still technically married. And she was also a Mormon. Or at least she was a Jack Mormon. She believed in the Mormon dogma, but she wasn't following it. So she tries, though, and so she's like, "Well, I like you, but I'm still technically married, and so we probably shouldn't date," and all this stuff. And so that's kind of how it first started. It wasn't like it wasn't like we just fucked the same day that we met each other. It took a few days before anything like that happened. And I think the first time that it did happen, I want to say she was drunk, I think. and she just happened to know where I was at. And so she's like, "Well, you're going to fuck me," and all this stuff. I can't remember. It was so many years ago. I can't remember how it first started. But I want to say it started because she was drunk. And I was willing, and so that's how it happened. So then I end up moving in with her, and she's got this kid, Brandon, and so I'm helping her take care of Brandon. And he has to take this medicine every night, and so I got to make sure he's taking his medicine, and, I'm doing all the things, and then taking her to AA, and trying to be the quote-unquote dad, and if some stupid little kid, one of Brandon's friends, is being an asshole, then I go out and I take care of it. If some kid had mistreated him, and yet Brandon was still allowing them to hang out with him because he didn't know anybody as a kid, then I step in and I'm like, "Nope, you gotta leave, you gotta get out of here." So that's why I thought that I was taking care of Chelsea, because I guess I was. I mean, for I want to say the first month or so, I was taking pretty good care of her. But the one thing that I didn't do, I never disciplined Brandon, ever. I couldn't stand disciplining. I couldn't stand it. And so I just never did. I never spanked him. The one time that I even brought up disciplining it was when he had been caught lying or something like that. And I was talking to Chelsea about it. She told me that he had lied about something, and she was pissed off. And I was like, okay, well, what we'll do is we'll just withhold we'll put his Halloween candy in front of him, and we'll ask him, okay, what is the real truth? And then if he lies, then we take a handful of that candy away from him. And every single time he lies, we take another handful, and he'll get it real quick, and he'll start telling the truth. And she's like, okay. So we do that, we go in the room, and then he just tells the truth. So we're like, okay, well, here's your candy, but just don't be, lying and stuff. And that was the extent of my disciplining Brandon. The only other thing that he got in trouble for was that he kept giving his friends Pop-Tarts. And so we'd always be running out of Pop-Tarts, and Chelsea was all pissed off about that. And I was like, okay, well, what we'll do is we'll just, because I didn't really care. I was just going to buy more anyway, but then when she brought it up, I was like, you know what, that is actually a problem. So then I was like, okay, well, what we'll do is we'll buy him his own Pop-Tarts, and we'll buy us our own Pop-Tarts. And then if he gives his own Pop-Tarts to his friends, he'll run out of them and realize, oh, I can't do that because I'll run out of fucking Pop-Tarts and I won't have any for myself. And so he instantly understood it. He just stopped giving any of them Pop-Tarts after that so he could have them for himself, which is exactly what I figured he was going to do. And I prided myself quite a lot on that. I was like, wow, I came up with something that was innovative, and it worked, and it solved the problem, and it, taught Brandon how to deal with his friends, but also deal with himself all at the same time. And I didn't have to spank him or get pissed off at him or anything. So it was way closer in line with what I wanted to do as parenting. So it wasn't that we didn't treat each other seriously. We did, but it quickly started to get out of line because Chelsea would get drunk, and then I would just allow it. And that was the issue, is I wouldn't take her to AA. After a while, I was just like, I don't want to go. Because she would say she didn't want to go, and I'd be like, I don't want to go either. I hate AA. Let's just stay at home and smoke pot and watch Rick and Morty and bang. And so that's what we would do. And so I didn't put my foot down with her. I didn't put my foot down with Brandon. I didn't put my foot down with anyone except Sam. And I was like, no, I'm going to keep dating Chelsea. That was the one thing that I guess I did stand up for, was that one thing. But other than that, I didn't really stand up for anything. And so Chelsea was like, you're a pussy, and I just can't deal with this, with you being like so limp-wristed about everything all the time, basically. She couldn't really get that pissed off at me because, according to her, I was a good lay, and I was taking good care of Brandon, and Brandon loved to play with me, and she did appreciate that, and that was something that I think kind of helped legitimize the relationship. Even though I wasn't taking her to AA, at least it was that. Brandon was causing less problems in school. He was happier. He was healthier. Everything was going well there. And so that, I think, took a lot of stress off of her. And I think that she appreciated it. But it wasn't enough, because even with Brandon, I didn't discipline him. And I didn't support her and put my foot down and be like, no, you're going to AA, and just make her go there. Or when I find alcohol stashed, then, I'm not supposed to just be like, okay, well, fuck it, just keep drinking. Actually do something about it. Pour it in the fucking toilet and flush it, and then toss the bottle and, all that stuff. But I didn't do that. And so she slowly lost respect in me, and she slipped into her addiction more and more and more. Started cheating on me, going behind my back and doing all kinds of things. And it's just like, the more that she stopped taking, and the other thing was that I would look at porn. Like, she told me up front, like, you can't look at porn because I take it as a sign of betrayal. It's considered a form of cheating. And I don't, because there's no physical person present, and so in my mind it wasn't cheating, but she looked at it like that. And initially, again, in the beginning, I did take that seriously, and I did delete all my porn, and I didn't watch porn for a while, and I would, just be with Chelsea, but eventually, not even eventually, it was like a few days of that, and I couldn't do it anymore because I was so horny, and I couldn't deal with it, because I like to do it every single day, multiple times a day. And I need it at least twice every day. I can't even deal with just once a day. Well, Chelsea was a once a day kind of a person. And she also didn't like to go for hours like I do. She wanted to do it for like 20 minutes or less. It was like really frustrating for me because I like to do it multiple times a day, all day, every day if I could. And I don't have a limit. And so I just needed more. So that was my addiction. So she's addicted to alcohol. I'm addicted to porn and just sexuality in general. And so that's what ended up causing all the problems. I kept watching porn, and I think that probably was what made it legit in her mind to go drink, because it was like, well, if you're gonna cheat on me, well then I guess I could just go cheat on you. And so it just started this like this escalating problem, because she never brought it up to me either, and I don't know why. Maybe it was because she felt intimidated. I don't know, but she just never brought it up. She just would go out and cheat on me and get drunk and shit. And it was just, that's how it happened. And so, and she didn't put her foot down on my porn thing, even though I know she knew that it was there because she found it. And she's like, well, what the hell is this? And I was like, I don't want to talk about that. That's, embarrassing, because I liked watching really fucked up porn. And she found it, and she's like, oh, what the fuck is this? It wasn't illegal. I've never watched child porn or anything like that, but it's like taboo stuff. It's like, piss porn and incest, bestiality, horses banging chicks and all this stuff, chicks taking a shit on each other. Just anything raunchy and just full of debauchery and sin. And so she found that, and she's like, oh, what's this? But she didn't hold me accountable for it. And then we just still ended up banging anyway. So it was just like, that's the kind of relationship that we ended up having. It started off, we both wanted to take it seriously, but we just didn't. We're just like, fuck it. Fuck it. It's just easier to just not have any principles, so we just didn't. But we did it in the beginning, but then we lost them. And every loss, even if it was a little tiny one, just led to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. It got bigger and bigger and bigger, and worse and worse and worse. And then, that's how it ended up finally ending. But I broke up with her, but she was basically already gone, because she was blacking out and not even knowing where she was or anything. I remember that when you get to the point in alcoholism when you just black out regularly, like most of the time, if not every time you drink, you black out, which is where she was at, then you don't really have, you're not really there anymore. Like, by the time you get to that point, you need the alcohol because you'll get the shakes. And then you can just justify all kinds of things at that point. Well, I need it. I'll die without it, literally. And I know that because, everybody knows that. You can die from the DTs, the delirium tremens that you get, the shakes, from withdrawal from alcohol. It's the only drug on earth that you can die from the withdrawals alone. You can get so addicted to alcohol that you will literally die without it. So she was getting to the point where she was blacking out pretty much every time she was drinking. And I don't know if she ever got the shakes, but, she probably did, and So then it's rock bottom. It's at the point where there's nowhere left for the addiction to go other than to just kill you. Like you're as addicted as you could possibly be. You're at the absolute rock bottom. So she was trying to get out of that. And they say in AA, if you ever go back to drinking, that you're just going to end up being an alcoholic again. I have physically proven that that's false so far. Knock on wood. But, most people, if they get that addicted, no matter how many years they stay away from it, the day that they go back, they're gone. They're already doing it again. So that's where she was at. And it ended. And so after it ended, and the throwing stuff. So all that happened. That actually didn't happen when I broke up with her. That happened before that. When I broke up with her, it was actually pretty abrupt. It was just like she came home, takes care of Brandon, talks with her brother, and then makes her way into the bedroom where I was at. And I let her have her time with them first, because I was done with her by that point, because she had been gone for 3 days. But before that, she had thrown all my shit out because she found out that I was still paying for a room with Brent. That's why she threw everything. It wasn't because I broke up with her. When I broke up with her, she was just depressed and sad. But and she was sober that time. And I think that's when she had stopped drinking, because when she had thrown all my shit down, it wasn't from being upset from me breaking up with her. It happened way before that. And now I remember. Now it's starting to come back to me. So after she had gotten drunk a few times, it had gotten darker and darker. Every time that she did it, it got a little bit darker. And one of the times that it got really dark was she was drunk again, and she was coming downstairs, because she used to come in and out of our apartment all the time because I let her do it, because we would have sex, and I had lost my virginity to her, finally had sex with somebody, and so I wasn't going to turn her down. So she was used to coming in and out of the apartment all the time, and she did it once when I wasn't there. I was outside, or I was doing something else, and she didn't know that, and so she comes into our apartment. Brent's taking a shower. She thought it was me, and starts talking to Brent, and she's like, well, where is he? And he's like, I'm in the fucking shower, because he's really weird about being like naked in front of people or around people. And she's drunk, and so she doesn't care, and he does, and so he's like, well, get the fuck out, and get the fuck out, and get the fuck out, and she thought it was disrespectful. So she flips him off, and then he gets all fucking pissed and tells her she's a bitch or something like that, and so she swings on him in the shower, and then so he swings on her, and and then she finds me after he's already hit her, and then I was like, what the fuck? And I was trying to take care of her, but she's all drunk and freaking out, and I couldn't tell if she was telling me the truth or not about what happened, because I was asking her about it, and she's drunk and telling me some crazy story about how Brent just hauled off and hit her for no damn reason and all this stuff, which I knew wasn't true, because Brent obviously wouldn't have done that. But she was drunk and upset, and that's what she thought was happening, and at least that's what she told me. And then I had to ask Brent about it, and I was like, just hold on, I tried to comfort her as much as I could, and then I was like, okay, now go upstairs and just wait for me, and I'm going to go talk to Brent, and then I'll come up and I'll talk to you, and I'll take care of you, and blah, blah, blah. And so she's like, okay. So she goes upstairs, and then I asked Brent what happened, and then he tells me a completely different fucking story about how she threw a punch at him first, which is what I believe actually happened. And so then I go back to her, and I'm like, why did you throw a punch at Brent? And then she's like, well, I didn't, and he's a liar, and he's just blah, 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 fuck him, and blah, blah. And I can't remember exactly what she said, but she was still upset about it. So she, I guess, expected me to kick his ass, and I was like, no, I didn't kick his ass, and I'm not gonna kick his ass. And she's like, well, what the fuck, blah blah blah, and he hit me, and it's like, well, but from what he had said, it sounded like you guys just got into a tiff because you started talking to him when he was in the shower and he's naked, and you're not, with him, so obviously that's gonna be a little bit weird. And so she's all upset. She goes downstairs, and I was like, no, 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 no. Don't go over there. Don't fuck with Brent. And so I'm trying to keep her off of starting any bullshit with Brent. But she's screaming and freaking out and being all drunk and crazy and a fucking hood rat. And then tries to punch Brent. I'm trying my ass off to hold her back. And she's like using every ounce of her energy and some psychotic fucking rage to try to punch Brent, which is just stupid because it's like, why are you even pissed off? But she was drunk, and that's what happens when you get drunk is you start being like, instinctive and primitive, and that's what happened. And so Brent punches her while I'm holding her back, which I still am pissed off about, but that's what happened. And so I'm trying my ass off to get her to fucking stop and to go upstairs and like restraining her and shit as best I could. But she outweighed me by like 30 pounds because I was, and still am, a string bean. I'm like 135 pounds, so I'm really, really thin, really difficult for me to hold her back. And so she got punched in the face, and then she goes upstairs and cries and blah blah blah. And then I'm like, what the fuck, Brent? Why are you even gonna punch her if I'm holding her back? And he's like, well, she swung at me. And it's like, you're not gonna get hit. You could have just gone into your room. I don't know why the hell you're standing there. And he's like, well, because I'm not gonna get treated like that in my own house and blah blah blah. And you shouldn't have let her in here. And this is all fucked up and whatever. And so it's like, okay, whatever, Brent. And I couldn't really get that pissed off at him because he did have half of a point, which is you can't really treat someone like that in their own house. And if you're not going to learn by them telling you, get the fuck out of my house, then, okay, I guess I can see why someone would punch someone. But she's a chick, and I was holding her back, and he didn't really have to do that. So, I don't know. I'm still on the fence about it, but I really didn't like that it happened. It definitely wasn't ideal. So that's when Chelsea was like, well, you're a pussy because you didn't beat him up for me. And it's like, well, I can't really defend you if you started it. So it's like, you're putting me in a really awkward spot. It's like if I get into a fight over a chick and I'm trying to defend her honor, then she's gonna have to have the honor, for me to defend, because otherwise I'm just cucked into being a bitch for her and fighting my own friends because she decided to be a drunken hood rat. And it's like, well, no, I'm not going to defend you for that. Now, again, what makes it even more gray is the fact that I wasn't supporting her, and if I had been, then she wouldn't have gotten into the situation to begin with. And honestly, I really wish she would have said that, because that would have been a lot more honest and to the point. And it is true, she wouldn't have had that happen to her if I had been supporting her. But I didn't, and so that's where she ended up. So there's a lot of ways of looking at it. That I'm partly at fault, she's partly at fault, Brent's partly at fault. There's all kinds of fault to go around. But at the end of the day, it's just a shit show. So that's how it ended up. And so then later, after that happened, I was like, I don't quite feel like I'm secure with Chelsea, so I'm going to just continue to pay Brent the half of the rent that keeps my place from being rented out from someone else. And that way, if things don't work out between me and Chelsea, I still have a place to go. And she found out about it, and then she freaked out and threw all my stuff down the stairs in a drunken rage. So, because, oh, you don't trust me. It's like, well, I can't because you're drunk. And I should have supported you so that you weren't drunk, and then I could trust you, but I didn't do that, so I can't really get pissed off at her on that front. But I did get pissed off at her about throwing shit, but she was drunk, so there wasn't really any reasoning with her at that point. And that's when that happened. She didn't throw all my stuff down the stairs because we broke up. She threw all my stuff down the stairs because she found out that I was still renting a place with Brent, which means that she knew that I didn't have very much faith in the relationship that I had with her. So I guess in a way, I ended up proving Sam right, that I was stealing the cookies from the cookie jar because I was banging her, but I didn't do anything else to help her after a certain point. So, I allowed her to do things that I shouldn't have allowed her to do, and that's what that led to. So I'm at fault, and she's at fault, and everybody's at fault again. And that's kind of how the whole relationship just ended up, was because neither of us took it seriously enough to keep it sober and real. Otherwise, it could have been, and I could have helped her and Brandon. But unfortunately, Brandon ended up paying the price for it. She ended up paying the price for it. I ended up paying the price for it because none of us took the relationship seriously enough to keep it sober, keep it safe and sane and healthy. And so that's why all that happened. So ultimately, it was because I bitched out and I didn't stand up for what I really believed in for long enough. I did it sometimes, but I didn't do it every time. And that's what ended up getting, it snowballed, because it was like you miss one time, and then the next time it's even easier to miss, and then you just keep missing it, and then it becomes the norm to miss. And so that's what happened, and that's where it ended up. But I can't say that I never took her seriously, or that she never took it seriously. We did in the beginning, but it just became a habit not to. Because it was easier not to take it seriously. It was easier to just fuck around. So that's what we did. And so that was the end of that. And at the end of it, Sam's not my friend. She moves away. Everybody's looking at me pretty much sideways because I was with Chelsea when she was freaking the fuck out, screaming and throwing shit all over the fucking place. It wasn't like it was quiet. It was right out there in the public. So then I've got my reputation all fucked up because I'm not taking care of her and she's causing problems, and that's, falling over onto me. And then on top of that, when I look into the Illuminati doing whatever it is that they do, these dumbasses think that I'm into the shit, because I already have this bad reputation with Chelsea, not taking care of her, and she's freaking out and screaming drunk and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, so that's who you like to hang out with, and so then that's where you're at. And I think that's what caused the discoloration to happen, because I don't understand how somebody could like overhear, because I would always have my window open so anybody could hear whatever it is that I'm watching on TV or on my computer. So when I would look at John Podesta, the molester, and he's going through his spiel about Marina Abramovich and all this weird shit, this weird art, this creepy art, like spirit cooking and stuff like that. And so I was looking into that because I was against it. And these dumbasses that are overhearing it just assumed that I'm into that shit and that I'm watching it to get off. Never asked me about it, they just assumed. And so then that happened. And that's why Caleb was all pissed off at me. Thinking that I'm running around trying to rape and kill children. And it's like, I don't know where the fuck somebody could possibly get that from. Because if I overheard somebody looking into something like that, and I didn't know anything about them, and I just happened to overhear it, then yeah, okay, maybe. But if you see this person every day, and they're like, right next to you, because Caleb was my next door neighbor. So Caleb was on the other side, the the building that was across from mine. So there's two apartment complexes buildings, but they both have the same layout. So Caleb was in the upstairs left hand side. I was on the other building facing it in the lower left hand side. So he's my next door neighbor on the other building, not in the same building that I'm in, but he's in the same kind of building on the other side of my building. So we see each other constantly. So it wasn't like if I was going around raping and killing kids, then you would think that that would be something that you'd see me doing, or like, see me like I don't know, killing or raping kids or beating them up or causing some kind of a scene or something like that. And that's what I don't get, because they saw me with Brandon, and Brandon loved playing with me, and we were always having a good time. I didn't even spank the kids, so that's what I'm saying is like, I don't understand where they got this from, because they saw me playing with Brandon all the time. I'm a cream puff. I don't like engaging in violence, even if it's in someone's defense, let alone to attack someone. I just can't stand it. I don't like violence. It makes me just like scared and sad and like disgusted, and I just don't like anything about it. But they didn't know that because they didn't know me, but I would have thought they would have at least known that. And so, there's all this weird bad blood that no one talks about, but they say it in the code, but they don't actually say it. So this is when I started to pick up on that code thing, because they tried to do a whole bunch of shit after Chelsea was gone. All of the neighbors tried to do all this weird shit with me, with trying to use the code to prove that I raped and killed kids and that I was some kind of a crazed pervert or something like that. But they would only ever do it in code. Like, none of them ever actually brought this up to me. No one ever actually said or explicitly accused me of it. It was just always in this code. And I'll give you an example quickly. It was like Carol, who lived across from me in the same building that I did. She's this really old lady, like 85 years old, kind of blue-haired grandma type, and super religious, not very bright. And she's like, oh, well, can you help me put together this kid's car? Now, I didn't speak code that well when this first started, because I was just finding out about it. So I didn't know what that meant. I didn't think anything of it. And so, yeah, I was like, okay, yeah, I'll help you build this kid's car for your cousin's birthday, or whatever, not cousin, your nephew or niece's birthday, or whatever the fuck it was. And she's like, yeah, I'll pay you $60 or $40 or something like that. I think she said it was like $40 or something. And I was like, okay, yeah, I could definitely use the money. I'll do that. And I did, and she paid me $40 in cash. And then she's like, okay, well, now I need you to go to the grocery store. I need you to get a turkey, and I need you to get one for yourself. And I was like, okay. And so she gave me some money to go to the store, and a little bit of extra money for my trouble. And I go to the store, and I get her turkey, and I bring it back. And then she's like, well, you were supposed to get one for yourself. And I was like, okay, well, I just didn't want one. So I just kept the money. And, then she comes over, and this is where it gets really funny and obvious. She comes over to my apartment, and she's like, do you want to have a pizza party? I'm going to have some pizza over at my house. And it's like, okay, well, you go do that, Carol. I'm good. I don't want any pizza. And she's like, well, it's really good pizza, and I have a whole lot of it, and we all love to eat pizza over here. And it's like, yeah, okay, whatever, Carol. And she did it 3 times. I was like, what the fuck? She comes back the next day. I'm still going to have that pizza party. Okay, cool, Carol. You go ahead and you do that. Well, I really wish you would have come in at that pizza party. I don't care, Carol. And then, if you think that it's just all in my head, it's like, well, oh, so what? So she's asking you about pizza. So what? Everybody eats pizza. It's like, yeah, but they think that pizza means, raping a little kid because it's part of the code. And the reason that I know that it was like that was because it wasn't just Carol. It was every single person except for Sam. I think Sam's the only one that didn't join into this, but every single person there did this to me except for Sam. So Carol did this stupid thing with the pizza and the kid's car and the turkey and all this weird shit. And then, and she never gave up. She did it every single day, or at least a few times a week, every fucking week until I was gone. She was dead set adamant on trying to catch a predator or some weird shit. And so that's what Carol did. And then this other dude, Caleb's friend Ethan, who I don't think he lived there. He might have lived there. I don't remember if he lived there or not, but he was always hanging out with Caleb. I've never seen Caleb without Ethan. Ethan's always there. So I think he did live there, but I don't remember. But he was always with Caleb. And Ethan actually brought this up. He was the closest one to explicitly saying it. And he's like, well, something, because we had gotten onto the conversation about the Illuminati. And he's like, yeah, there's some, I forget, some actor or something like that loves to rape all the little boys and all this stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, Chicken Hawk or something like that. And it's like, well, who would ever want to do that? And then he looks at me and he goes, we know. And I was like, about what? And then he just didn't say anything. So it was as close to an accusation as you can get. I mean, the dude really did say this to me. And so it's like, okay. And then these two dudes that lived over at the same place that Roger used to live at, the mental health Anchor Watt building, which was the building that was the next one adjacent to Caleb's building. So there's my building, Caleb's building, and then Anchor Watt. And the people over at Anchor Watt, there's these two guys that are stopped me in the middle of the road while I'm walking one day. And this has never happened to me before, but all of a sudden they stop me and they're like, the one dude is standing right in front of me and the other dude's circling around me slowly, staring at me menacingly. And they're like, well, if we say something, then she'll never know, or something like that. And they said it while they're looking right at me like, oh, well, you're an idiot, kind of a look, but didn't say it. And so, I mean, this is like really obvious about this code bullshit. These two guys ended up showing up. Oh, yeah. And then at the end of that, then they're like, oh, yeah, by the way, we're going to have some pizza over here if you want. And so it wasn't just Carol. It was these two guys did it too. They talked to me about pizza. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure, yeah, it sounds great. And then I went on about my business. And then I came back. And when I had come back, there was these two kids. Or they were probably adults, but they were trying to look like kids. It was such a bad fucking act. And they've got they've got this like 25-year-old dude and a 25-year-old chick with like makeup on and like stupid gay ass little kid clothes, holding each other's hands and walking with frowns on their faces to some other person's house that was right across the street. So this is the pizza thing in action. So it's like, there's no way that these guys just offhandedly said this. They stopped me in the middle of the street. They're menacing at me. One dude's literally walking around me in slow circles. It obviously was some kind of a threat. And then they're trying to do this stupid thing about these two young adults trying to look like they're teenagers go into someone's house, and it's like, you don't see that every day. You don't ever see that. I've never seen that ever again. It's just that one and only time I've ever seen that. A 25-year-old dude and a 25-year-old chick with makeup on and weird-ass little kid clothes, trying desperately and obviously to try to look like they're little kids or like teenagers or something. It's really fucking weird. And so I just passed that. It's just like, okay, that's fucking weird. And I go back to my dorm, and I started to think, that sounds like they were trying to catch a predator right there. They were trying to do some kind of a sting operation. And then I go up to my apartment, and I'm looking around because I was like, well, I bet you there's gonna be somebody here that's gonna do an ambush. And sure enough, some people come out from behind the building across from mine, Caleb's building. They come out from behind it, and they're like crouched over and looking at the ground and like like picking up rocks and stuff like that, and sticks and dust or something, and just like in the dirt, looking through this dirt. And I was like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, we're looking for a rock. And Brandon, not what's her face's kid, not Chelsea's kid, but Brandon that moved in after Chelsea left, Brandon and Wendy moved into her apartment because she leaves and goes back with Gary after we broke up. And the apartment was vacant for all of about 2 or 3 days, and then Wendy and Brandon move in. And Brandon was a big fat dumbass asshole that was always a piece of shit and always an asshole. Every single time I saw this dude, he was like glaring at me and like frowning and always pissed off. And Wendy was always like trying to make it look like she wasn't judging me, but clearly obviously was. In some like, covert but yet obvious way. It wasn't ever explicitly said. Just like I said, no one ever explicitly accused me of anything, but that's a hell of a lot of coincidences all at once. He's sitting on the steps, smoking a cigarette and looking pissed off as hell. The people from behind Caleb's house are crouched down, sifting through dirt. And, I'm sitting over here going, what the fuck is this shit? And I'm like, well, what are you guys doing? We're looking for a rock. And it's like, what? Obviously that can't just be, why would you be looking for a rock? It's a code thing. It's like, oh, they're looking for a dumbass. They're looking for a brick, a stupid person, a rock. And so it's like this code crap. And so it's like, what the fuck, man? What is this? And that's what happened after Chelsea left. For some reason, everybody thought that I was trying to rape and murder little boys, specifically boys, for some reason. I don't know if it's because they saw me with Brandon and they're really stupid, and so they thought, oh, well, he's trying to, like, groom him, or maybe he just got done raping him to death and somehow magically resurrected this kid and is out playing with him. Or maybe he's just trying to make it look like he wouldn't do that. I don't know how they made that make sense to them, but whatever. And so that was the state of things before I had left. I forgot to mention any of that in the previous thing. I'm not even going to upload the previous one. I'll upload this one because this is like the real story. So this is, I guess we'll end that here for now, that's the backstory of all the shit that happened before I got kicked out. So what happened after Chelsea left is that all these people tried to prove that I was raping and killing kids. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, there's these 2 other dudes at the same kind of time as all this happened, because I was only there for a few months after Chelsea left before I became homeless. And all this stuff happened during that time. It never happened before. When I was dating her, it was fine. Before I was dating her, it was fine. Nothing happened. Nothing ever happened. And yet, after Chelsea's gone, now all of a sudden, now it's all this crazy weird shit is happening. People looking for rocks and people talking about chicken hawks and then staring right at me and saying, we know. Like, what else could that possibly mean other than it's an implicit accusation that I'm raping little boys? And so that's what was going on. These 2 dudes show up at my house looking for Ricardo. What was his name? Ricardo? Richardo? Something like that. I can't remember. Raimundo. That's right, Raimundo. Raimundo was this homeless guy that I used to hang out with. Oh, I forgot about Casper, even though that probably wasn't his real name. But yeah, so these 2 dudes show up looking for Raimundo, and I was like, no, he's not here. I haven't seen him in a few days or something like that. And they sit down and they're like, well, we like to go find chicken hawks. And it's weird because, like, they said this either right before or right after Ethan did. So I don't know if they had talked to Ethan about me or something like that. I don't know. But, yeah. Weird, man. And then, oh, yeah, I forgot to mention that too. And then, so after they came over to my house and just abruptly started talking to me about finding people who rape and kill boys, little boys, you know, like 6, 7, 8 years old, something like that. They show up to my house and they abruptly tell me that they go out and try to find people that do that. Or no, not try. That they do find people like that and then kill them. And that they're, you know, that's what they do in their free time and stuff. It's like, okay. You know, I didn't really know how to take that. So, and they sat over at my house for like an hour, and they're both staring at me, like accusing me, but not saying it. Like they're looking at me judgmentally while they're telling me that this is what they do. So the obvious context of this is that they're threatening me, that they're saying that this is who they think that I am and that they're going to kill me or something like that. So the two dudes do that, and then this other dude that lives in the apartment that's across the street from me in another apartment building, like 2 buildings over, right? So if you go directly across the street from my building, then you've got another apartment complex that's similar to the one that I lived in, but it's across the street. And then there's a building on the other side that's facing it, just like my building and Caleb's building are facing each other. They both have the same basic layout. You go across the street and it's the same thing again across the street. Well, the dude that's over across the street from Caleb's building, diagonal to me, comes over. He says his name is Casper and that he guards his friend's pizza. This is the 3rd dude that's talking to me about the fourth person talking to me about pizza. Well, actually, at this point, it's almost a dozen people if you counted all of them, because it's the 2 dudes that stopped me on the street talking about pizza, Carol talking to me about pizza, Caleb talking to me about pizza, Ethan talking to me about pizza, fucking, what is it, those 2 dudes that showed up talking to me about, well, chicken hawks, but still, same thing. And then Casper, and so that's like 8 goddamn people that are talking to me about this shit. And it's always the same shit. And it's everybody except Sam in the entire vicinity. And it's like, what the fuck? Then when I'm outside one day, I overhear this dude screaming, where are you? I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kick your ass and all this stuff. This dude is yelling at his 3-year-old son. And I finally stopped. I was like, are you yelling at your son? And he's like, that's not my son. I would never yell at my son like that. And it's like, okay. And then I called Child Corrective Services on him. And then this other dude shows up with a gun and is drunk. And I'm sitting on the steps with smoking a cigarette. This didn't all happen in the same day. It's just random events that happened at some point. I don't remember when each of them happened, but all within the same time frame of right after Chelsea had left and before I became homeless. All of this. And it's like, you know, before that, nothing happened. The worst thing that I can think of is that Butch died. Butch used to live over at Caleb's building. He was a cool guy. He used to fix cars and stuff. And a really sweet old guy. And he died, and that's like the worst thing that ever happened. I was there for 10 years, and that's the worst thing that happened. And the only reason that he died, he didn't even die violently. He died because he was old. He died from like a heart attack or something like that. And that's like the worst thing that happened. And then all of a sudden, after Chelsea leaves, all this shit happens. This dude shows up one night, and I'm sitting on the steps after Chelsea had gone. Like a month or 2 months or 3 months after she had gone. I'm sitting on the steps smoking a cigarette, and this drunken dude is walking down the street, and he walks up to me, walks up to the building anyway, and he's at the bottom of the stairs. I was at the top of the stairs, and he's got a fucking gun. He pulls this gun out, and he's just like lackadaisically pointing it all over the fucking place, going, you know, sometimes you gotta have a gun, or some weird shit like that. And I was like, okay, whatever, you know, have a good night, man, okay. And then he just leaves. He's like, okay, all right. And then he just leaves. He was, at least he wasn't threatening, ironically and weirdly enough. The dude with the gun is like the least threatening one. This dude was screaming at his girlfriend, about ready to smack her, threatening her one day when I'm coming back from work or whatever, or not work, the grocery store, in the middle of the night. Also, again, after the period in between when Chelsea left and I became homeless. All of that stuff happened during that time. All this crazy shit. And it's like, I have no words for this. I don't even know how to explain any of this. Wade shows up. He's one of the patients over at the Anchor Watt place. He shows up one night, because they used to come over all the time when Roger was a friend of mine. We would smoke pot. I'd smoke pot with the patients over at Anchor Watt, the mental health patients, and they'd be like schizophrenics or, whatever, and I'd smoke pot with them. And, that's how I met Roger, actually, is I sold him a little nickel bag, and he used to come over all the fucking time and buy pot from me and then just smoke pot with me sometimes randomly. We ended up becoming friends, but Wade was one of those patients too, and he came over and he smoked pot with me, and he freaked out and he went over to some random neighbor's house and was like wandering through their yard and talking about some gibberish nonsense I can't remember, after he saw me, and he's never done that before. And literally like almost every single week some weird crazy shit that's unprecedented that had never happened before happens. While all this should say, oh, fuck it, yeah, that was really weird. This one night during the same little time frame in between when Chelsea left and I was homeless, this random chick comes up from behind me one day when I'm going to the Maverick store in the middle of the night, and no one's ever on this road. In the 10 years that I was there, I never saw a soul. This is the only night I ever saw somebody, so it was like they had come out to come see me or something like that. I don't know. But this person comes up behind me while I'm walking to the store, and it sounds like she's talking to me, but she's like, well, it must be nice to just be irresponsible and just have no responsibilities and no kids and all this stuff. And it's like, well, okay. Is this chick on the phone? Is she talking to someone else? I don't know. And then it's like, okay, I guess that's what that is. And then, so I keep going and she's like, oh, you're just going to ignore me? Like, you're just going to ignore me? And I was like, what the fuck? Is this chick talking to me? Like, does this have something to do with me? This is really weird. And I stopped for a second, and I was going to turn around and say something to her, but then I was like, no, this is really weird. This is just too weird. It's the middle of the night. No one's ever on this road, but she's on it. She's talking to someone loud as fuck, and she's saying some things to me that happened to go along with what just happened, because Chelsea just left, and I wasn't taking care of any kids. Well, it must be nice to be irresponsible and not have any kids to take care of. Oh, that's a really weird, coincidental thing to hear after that already happened. So that was strange. And then, oh, well, you're just going to ignore me. And then I just keep walking. And then she's silent, or I don't remember if she said anything after that. And I go to the store and I get my cigarettes, and I'm thinking to myself, well, that was fucking weird. That's, really coincidental. But she must have been on the phone talking to somebody else. So then I'm, I come back onto the same road, the opposite direction, from the store back to my house. And a little ways down the road, she's sitting there, the same chick that was following me, is talking to some other random dude. And she's like, well, I just wanted someone to pay attention to me. And it's like, I couldn't figure out if she was talking to me or not, but it really seemed like she was. And I was like, what the fuck is this? This is really weird. And then when I got back home, there was a popped red and black balloon. I guess they call them balloon bouquets or something like that. It's like a bunch of balloons all strung together in a bunch, only they were all popped. And it's like, well, what is this? Is this happy birthday for it? Because like it would, if you've ever seen Stephen King, the movie about his book, it's this creepy clown guy, and it's, red and black colors. are the theme. And so it's like, is that what this is? You know, I couldn't figure out what the fuck that was about. And it's all this really weird coincidental shit happened. So, yeah. And another weird thing happened when I went to see Roger. We went to the restaurant, Dos Hombres, and we ordered something. And then Roger asked me, he's like, "So what are you gonna do when you get back home?" And I said, "Clean." And everybody gets dead silent, as if they had heard me. Like, have you ever been in a party where like everybody stops talking at the same time? It just gets really, really awkward and like really fucking weird. Well, that happened, you know, and I've never had that happen to me before. It was just that one time, all in the same. And like I said, I don't know the order of these events. They're just a bunch of events that happened before I left. And even since then, like after I moved into this place, nothing like that has happened to me since. I don't know how that ever happened, but it was really weird. So that's just the prologue. That's all the stuff that had happened to me right before I became homeless. And the reason, like I said, that I had become homeless is because I kept seeing these commercials that were talking about going to Denver using Greyhound. And I misinterpreted that and thought that that was the Illuminati because I thought all this stuff was all connected, that all these people were part of the Illuminati and that they were all trying to kill me unless I did this blackmail thing. And the irony of the situation is that they all thought that I was in the Illuminati and that I was killing and raping kids. So I thought they were trying to get me to join by doing these blackmail things and be like, yeah, we already know who you are, so you don't have to worry about, you know, getting caught by us because we already know. You know, and by the way, well, we all love pizza so much, and why don't we just go out and have some fucking pizza all the live long day with the goddamn pizza or chicken hawks or some weird shit. And so it's like, well, you know, if I'm getting these commercials about going to Denver all the fucking time over and over and over and over again, maybe that means that all these people are connected. They're all doing all this weird shit in an arrangement, you know, because it all suddenly started happening. So this must be what they do to jump someone in, just like in a gang. Like you have to do some kind of an initiation thing to get initiated into a gang, and you get jumped in. Usually, you get your ass kicked by like everybody that's in the gang will kick your fucking ass. You know, so that you get toughened up by it or something like that. It proves that you're willing to sacrifice your own, you know, vulnerability, your own health in order to join it. So it's weird, man. That's what I thought was happening. So once I got done with watching those commercials, after all that stuff happened to me, I thought, well, then that must be it. They must have all done all this stuff as a group, knowing who I am and knowing that I have to get initiated. And this must be the initiation ritual, is that they're trying to jump me in by using blackmail, by using some kind of like a sting operation or something like that to get dirt on me in case I ever try to rat out the group. So all of that stuff made me think that, you know, this these commercials that I get about going to Denver must have something to do with that. So maybe all these people will stop doing all this stuff when I finally get this done. And, you know, I'm trying to figure out, okay, I need to speak code to these people. And I didn't know how to speak code because I just found out about it. And ironically, these people that are all fucking with me all the time have been speaking code for forever, and they know way more about it than me. And so it's like, well, what I think, see, and I still have these psychotic episodes where it's like, is that really the way it is? Do all these people see, am I the only person that's in existence and all these people are like seeing my thoughts in their heads? And that's why everything seems to be, you know, all revolving around me? It's weird. It's like, whoa, what the fuck? So anyway, I go through all that stuff, see these commercials about going to Denver. I keep going to Denver, and I'm asking everybody about pizza over there. Oh, yeah. Where can I go? So me and my fiance can go get some pizza and ice cream and all this stuff so I could get this over with, or I could find some more information about it, or I could, like, kind of probe to try to figure out what the hell's going on. Or maybe even do it. I was at such a mess, I may have. I don't know. So that's a part of it. There is a tinge of my own guilt thrown in there too. It's not like I was a complete noble gentleman the entire time. Most of the time, yeah, but there was a tinge of it in there that wasn't. So, but I sure as hell wasn't going to go over to Carol's house for it. I wasn't going to be a fucking retard and like talk to some dumbass that's pretending to be part of it that obviously isn't. That's like menacing at me while he's saying it because he's so stupid that he thinks I can't read fucking tones and facial expressions. But that's how all these people are. And over time I've started to realize that is that most humans don't know how to read facial expressions or tone of voice and literally have no idea how to read anyone or anything without using the code. That's all they know. They don't know anything else exists. They are only aware of the code. And it's really weird. It's really, really weird. But I've seen it over and over and over. I've seen it. And like, I'll give you an example like with Tasha, which is before Chelsea. Tasha was so fucking stupid about being able to read things that she would suddenly freak out at me for no reason that I could figure out, and flip the fuck out and have some kind of a fucking reaction where it's like, oh well, you're not taking me seriously, or you're not taking this or that seriously, because I would say something and I don't use code, so I don't think about what I'm saying when I say it. I just say stuff most of the time. And that's how it was with Tasha. I didn't even know that the code existed when I was dating her. With Chelsea, I was just starting to figure out that there was a code. And then after Chelsea, that's when I really started to get initiated into it. But before Chelsea, I didn't even know that there was a code. And Tasha is freaking out not all the time, but like regularly would have these reactions to me. And I'd be like, this doesn't make any sense. Because it wouldn't have anything to do with what I had actually explicitly said. And when I would say things in the presence of her and someone else, then she would always, well not always, but she often, regularly, would jump in and say, what he means is, and then she would repeat what I would say, as far as I could tell, because I didn't speak code, the same way that I had said it. It was just worded slightly differently. And so I thought that, maybe the way that I talk is a little bit off somehow, and so people just don't really understand what I'm saying. And that's the idea that I've always had when I was a kid, growing up. Nobody ever really seemed to understand what I was saying. I would always have to try to explain anything that I was trying to explain to someone. I'd have to say it like 3 or 4 times, or use like a whole bunch of analogies to try to get them to understand something that honestly is really simple. And nothing explicit comes to mind. It's just a bunch of vague memories of having to reiterate over and over and over to get someone to understand what I'm saying. And it never made sense to me. I always just thought that it was something to do with a communication error on my part, because I understood what everybody else was saying, but they didn't seem to understand what I was saying. And so now that I'm aware that there is a code, now I can see it, and it's everywhere. And that's why I was never able to make friends or have any kind of a long-lasting relationship with any other human being, because everybody around me is addicted to this fucking code language, and they don't know anything else. They only know the code. And so, like the example that I was going to bring up was that one time Tasha was banging Whitney in the hotel room that I paid for, and she's banging Whitney right next to me for like 6 hours. And after about half an hour of it, I get up and I leave, and periodically I'd come back in and check and see if they're still fucking, and they were fucking for like 6 hours straight, man. It was an ungodly long amount of time. And when they finally finish, Tasha's sitting there in Whitney's lap, and Whitney's like brushing her hair, and Tasha looks to me like just like this. What would you say? Like a spoiled cat, like a spoiled little kitten, and she had no reaction to me being there at all. Had no. It was as if I had not been there, and it's like, how can you? But we had dated for a year. So it's like, well, how could you possibly have no emotional reaction to my presence? It's just really weird. They just don't, people just don't know how to intuitively read someone just by the tone of their voice or by what they're actually saying. They only listen to the code exclusively. And so people just, they don't listen to anything that anyone ever says explicitly. They are only listening to the coded references that are just beneath the surface. And again, like I have to say, the irony being that these dumbasses all think that the code language is gospel. And the weird thing is that they all have different gospels. And none of them have ever figured out, not a fucking one, has ever figured out that someone else is having a completely different experience and a completely different understanding than they do and still speak code. Every single human thinks that they are the best at speaking code and everyone else around them is subpar and doesn't get it because they have these conflicts. And then the classic thing to do is, well, if there's a misunderstanding, then the other person must be stupid. And the mark of an intelligent person is one that second guesses themselves first and says, no, maybe there's something wrong with me, because that's how you learn. If you always think the other person doesn't know what's going on because you're confused and you don't understand why they reacted a certain way, then there's something wrong with you because you can't ever learn, because every single time you get confronted with something that you currently don't believe, you just brush it off as being stupid or crazy or evil. And that's where almost every single human on this planet is at. And it's just, it's it's like, how the fuck does anyone actually function here? It's just, it's crazy to me that that's what the case is. And so, in conclusion of this prologue of the story of what happened in between me dating Chelsea and me becoming homeless, and then, you know, a little bit about Tasha, who is the one that I dated before Chelsea, just as an example of where everyone is at in general. That's where I was at as the story that I explicitly said. So the next one that I upload, I'm going to talk about what happened after I became homeless. But I'll leave it here for now.